And we've hit episode 2. So if you're still here, well done.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're going to dive into inner work and like what the actual fuck is inner work,
Well, it's a lot of things.
right?
So this is probably going to be one of those long episodes.
I know, right? This is going to be fun.
Are we going to go like categorize it as like it's going to be a long episode?
I reckon so.
Prepare to take that punch?
Let's just prepare to take that punch.
Yeah. Right.
Sweet.
Okay. Inner work, you say?
Yeah. So for you, Todd, what's inner work? When you hear the word inner work?
To my mind, inner work is confronting the thought patterns, the feeling states that you have become oblivious to, whether that's conditioning or indifference or preoccupation or overwhelm,
Mm-hmm.
and then confronting them sufficiently so that you can trace what has brought you to this place where you're not aware of them, and then work on those inner aspects of yourself, because, you know, inner work, to produce a different feeling state, a different thought process, and ideally maybe a different result for yourself.
Yeah. So pretty much like raising your self-awareness. Like how aware are you of yourself
That,
and the shit that you do?
as far as I'm concerned, any personal development, I don't care what version of it you're talking about,
Yeah.
starts with self-awareness.
100%.
Because, you know, if you're not aware of yourself, well, how do you know you do or don't do things that contribute to how your life actually is? How are you aware of what you think about your life, let alone feel about your life? Because it's a different layer again.
Yeah.
You know, like self-talk and things like that, and what feeling state drive that conversation that you have in your head that you're so used to, you don't even know you're having it.
Yeah. Definitely. And like for me, inner work, when I do inner work with clients especially, it almost comes after that self-awareness point, because
if you don't know what you're dealing with, like, how do you change anything, right?
100%. Like a lot of people I deal with, they've come to a point where they've realized that they're repeating a generational pattern and they don't want to, or they want to break the cycle.
Yeah.
Or they're, you know, a survivor of abuse and they want to heal from that. And they've hit a point where they have suppressed for so long, almost like in our intro where that spring comes up or that beach ball comes up, and all of a sudden they're flooded with all of this repressed emotion, trigger, trauma, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it's literally like, sit the fuck down, you've got some shit to do.
It's stuff comes up.
I should precursor, guys, I swear a lot.
She's even got earrings that say exactly that. I'm feeling sweary today. She disappointingly isn't wearing those.
I was gonna wear them, but I wasn't too sure if I was gonna be wearing headphones or not, and they hurt under my headphones, so I decided
you could have just worn them for the sake of wearing them and taken them out. I'm committed.
All right.
Sick burn.
Next time,
yeah.
I promise.
In terms of what you were saying, it's like, it's almost like that, the self-awareness to realize that you're stuck.
Yeah.
You might not have any idea of how and why you're stuck, but just realizing that I'm not happy.
Yeah.
I'm fucking miserable.
Yeah. I'm stuck.
Whatever term you want to use,
yeah.
It's just like frustrated, angry. It's like all those secondary things that hopefully wake you up to the idea that things aren't right.
Yeah. Definitely. So when we're talking about self-awareness and, you know, waking up to the fact that things aren't right, we're not happy, we're feeling stuck, we're feeling overwhelmed, because I'm all about the feels. What are some things that people can do to raise their self-awareness? And I reckon a lot of your answers are going to be same as mine, which is going to be fantastic.
I think it's the inclination to ask yourself the question, what's really going on here?
Mm.
And having that sit in the forefront of your mind. Because if you're feeling shitty and you're not prepared to ask that question, there's nothing I can do for you.
No, well, that's it. You're kind of making the choice then to just repeat the pattern, repeat the cycle that you're in.
And that's fine, but I'm not the one who feels shitty.
Yeah.
And I can't help you if you're not prepared to own that that's a thing for you.
Mm.
Everything else is just details.
Yeah.
If that's not the thing. So like just being present with the idea of like, how am I actually feeling today?
Mm.
And whether that's a physical sensation sort of sense of the word.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I feel a bit like tight in my chest. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And sort of doing your best to sort of trace those lines through and go, well, why would I feel tight in my chest?
Mm.
You know, the old hypochondriac myself, I've got lung cancer. So well, that's awkward. That's not quite where I was going from. But like, what if that's a symptom of you feeling a bit anxious?
Yeah.
But because you've only just woken up to the idea that that might be a thing for you, it's just a physical sensation that you can detach from and ignore and have done for I don't know how many years, for example.
Yeah, most definitely. And I'd just like to add in there as well is the very first thing that we can do, as Todd was saying, is like, you know, start checking in with yourself, is to literally just slow the fuck down. If you are running from life or running through life, trying to stay as busy as you possibly can, so you don't have to think about shit, you're going to stay feeling shitty. You're going to stay feeling overwhelmed. You're going to stay feeling stressed. You're going to stay feeling anxious because you're not allowing yourself that time, that space to actually stop and go, what am I actually feeling right now? Am I doing stuff in my life because I'm running away from something? Or am I just...
Which is not weird, by the way.
No, like, it's a completely normal response.
It's a self-preservation instinct.
Yeah, you know, it's let's keep the mind safe per se, whilst destroying the body all at the same time.
Yeah, how's that working out?
I know, right? But yeah, allowing yourself that time to go, what am I actually feeling right now, or how am I feeling, or take some time to journal even, and even if that just starts as like a vomit on paper,
that's the point,
just to get it out.
Yeah. So we could, what if we sort of synopsized that a little bit and said, feelings are signposts. They're there to tell you something.
Yeah.
You don't have a feeling come out of nowhere for no reason.
No.
Not really. And unless we're prepared to look at it and go, why am I feeling that way?
Yeah.
We don't learn something deeper about ourselves. We don't learn how to manage those like emotions. We don't know why they've been triggered. We don't know why we feel that way. It's very challenging to sort of do anything about that.
Yeah.
Without that awareness and some kind of understanding of it.
Most definitely. And then, like, for me, I know with the people that I work with, when raising their self-awareness, I get them to do things. I ask them. They always have the choice. If they don't want to do it, then that's on them. We won't be moving very fast.
That's sometimes, you know, you've got to plant the seed somewhere.
Right. Is working on their sleep. Like, if they're feeling so overwhelmed and stressed out, like, what's your sleep look like? Is it shitty and you're waking up every hour in the night? Well, of course you're going to be anxious. Of course you're going to be stressed. And of course you're going to be overwhelmed because your body is still in a state of flight and fight. So putting things together, like putting a morning routine in place, putting a nighttime routine in place, allowing yourself that time, funny word, to slow down, you know.
Especially when you consider how many other knock-on effects poor sleep has 100%. That have coping and maladaptive behaviors that drive you further into poorer sleep mechanics. That mean you get less sleep, which means you rely more on caffeine or sugar. Like that there's a cycle to that so many people just think is normal.
Well, that's it. So, and I know for me, for example, like I'm a mum of 2 kids. If I lose sleep, my mental health goes down the toilet real fucking quick.
It's not an accident.
You know, and it's, I do not cope with day-to-day stresses very well. And like,
You're not you.
That's it. I'm a mess, essentially. And a lot of stuff can really alleviate when you can actually sleep, or even to follow on from that, when, you know, obviously when you, as you said, if you don't sleep, you eat shit, you feel shit. Hello. And you start actually eating better food, or food that's more aligned with you and your values and your body and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Or even in my case, because I work with a lot of women, and I know you probably do too,
Yeah, a few.
actually eat enough fucking food, because starving yourself, like, we're so primitively wired still, like we live in, you know, 2023, depending on when you're listening to this is when this was recorded, but inside we are still so primitively wired to the fact that if we don't eat, it kicks off that survival mechanism to say that we're in danger, we're going to fucking die.
We're going to talk about fasting at some point.
And of course.
But that's me being a douche. But absolutely, like, if you're doing something that keeps you present in that fight or flight mode, well, how are you going to, like, all right, when you're in fight or flight mode, you have a flood of cortisol and adrenaline in your system. The numbers look like that offlines your higher cognitive function to the point where you're roughly 30 to 50% dumber.
Yeah.
Literally. How are you going to make a decision that's valuable for you, that's not just invested in more survival, if that's the case?
And that's it. And on top of that as well, just to get a little bit sciencey, because I have some sciencey stuff.
Look at you nerd.
I know, right? One night of poor sleep can actually put your body into a state of a type 2 diabetic for its blood sugar insulin response. Look at me being all sciencey.
That happens when you have less than 6 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Did you know that 2 nights in a row like that is the equivalent to blowing over 0.05 on a breathalyzer in terms of cognitive and perceptual impairment?
Don't drive tired, kids. Sorry.
Worse, at least when you're drunk, you know you're drunk.
Yeah.
When you're tired, you don't know it.
Well, especially if you live in that state for an extended period of time.
It becomes normal,
right?
And that's when you lean on caffeine. Anyway, that's a.
Let's...
We said tangents, right? Yeah.
So coming back down, yeah. So working on your sleep, working on some food, working even on some gentle movement. You know, to release dopamine, to release serotonin, to
produce those things.
Right. Yeah. So you're not literally running your life on cortisol and adrenaline. And doing things like taking a simple walk can do fucking wonders for you.
You go for a walk, you're doing some grounding, you're getting some vitamin D in, you're regulating your physiology to make it, we can breathe.
Yeah.
Like, we can go into breath work as well. Like, you're trying to convince your body that you're not dying. That's what breath work is for. Like, we're okay, we're safe.
That's it, right? So, and then even still, it's a very meditative activity where you can just be present with yourself and ask yourself those questions. You know, what am I feeling? What's coming up for me? Why am I feeling like this? What do I want to do about it?
I think Joe Dispenza describes meditation as sitting quietly with yourself. And the point being that everything you just said is you creating a meditative place so that you can be open to those things actually coming up.
Yeah, definitely.
So that self-awareness actually has somewhere to work, not just competing with all those other primal drives that may or may not be helping you at the time.
I know, right? And just to like go on a little bit of a wee tangent there, guys, because as you know, I'm a wee neurodivergent. I've got ADHD. And I work with a lot of people that also have ADHD. And one of the biggest things they come to me with is, I can't meditate. Sorry, I call bullshit. It took me a while, and I did. And I started with things like walking. And I started with things like hobbies. Something to keep my hands busy, but keep me grounded in the present moment. And then slowly but surely, I worked up to sitting with my thoughts in a quiet room and all of those sort of things, because I had this belief that when you meditate, you're supposed to be quiet of mind, and that's not the case at all. Like, if you've got no thoughts, guys, you're dead. Just saying.
Like, that's the ideal state to get to,
True.
where you're just so present that Taoism, for example,
Yeah.
The principle of it is described as no mind.
Yeah.
That you've
entered the void.
You're being, as opposed to thinking all sorts of wild shit, that monkey mind.
All right. But if you've never meditated before, it's going to be fucking chaos, because if you sort of stop, you gotta think, I love a good analogy, guys. I love a good analogy. If you don't open your emails for like 6 months and you open them and you've got thousands upon thousands of emails and spam in there, you're going to take one look at that shit and go, fuck this, I'm out, and close it back down and leave it for another however many months before you have the courage to actually filter through that shit.
What were you saying about overwhelm?
Right?
Yeah.
But meditation is similar. If you've never actually slowed down and listened to your thoughts, or even processed what you're going through, processed your feelings, they get stored up in there. And the first time you sit down, it's like, oh, wow, we're finally quiet. Yahoo, have all this stuff. And you can get like a minute in it and go, I can't quiet my mind. Fuck this shit, I'm out. But if you can just sit for at least a minute and just filter and go, okay, start deleting the spam.
Yeah.
Start closing off the tabs and start that slow process.
Well, from a very real point of view, it's called practicing meditation because it's literally practice.
Yeah.
You're just giving yourself an opportunity to think different, to be different. And like when you said, I call bullshit on that. It's like, well, is that a learned behavior, conditioned or not? Like, do you not believe that you can sit there and have a relatively clear mind? Or is that literally the condition?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so there's a balance between those two things. But like, who is going to be the monk on the mountaintop transcending to light the first time they meditate? You know what I mean? So like, if you're not managing your expectations and you think you're going to be this fucking demigod walking amongst mortals, it's like, well, good luck to you. Let me know how that works out. Teach me how if you do.
Yeah, tell me your secret. But that's it. I think as well, like, and just to go off into another tangent, human beings, especially adult human beings, tend to have this like unrealistic expectation of themselves. If they don't get something right, guys, I say right with quotation marks because meditation, there's no right or wrong, but anything, right? If they don't get it right the first time, it's like, fuck it, I'm out of here. I didn't do it.
It's like art.
I can't do it. Where, as you said, it's right. It's a practice for a reason. You are practicing something. Same with raising your self-awareness. You are practicing being present with yourself as something that you've never done before, or very rarely. You're practicing noticing the emotions that come up. You're practicing noticing the feelings that come up. You're practicing validating yourself in that space, because another part of inner work is being able to sit and validate yourself for what you are feeling. And but not only that, having a look, and this is going to be like a hard truth, guys. I love a good hard truth. Also noticing.
Way to make it sound creepy, though.
I know. Also, having that full-blown radical responsibility for yourself and your own life. Like Will Smith said it, and I reckon he said it fucking beautifully, is that you have, like, it was not your fault what happened to you, but it's damn well your responsibility of what you're going to do about it. So you can take responsibility for the fact that you are in this space right here and right now because survival, right?
What else have you got?
Yeah, that you've made choices for survival. You may not have known any different, whatever, but you have still made that decision to shut everything off to the point where you've been hit by a ton of bricks and all of a sudden all this stuff's coming up, and all of a sudden you have to start looking at yourself and going, what the actual fuck is going on right now?
I can't think of any coach, mentor, inspirational speaker, whatever we want to call them, that doesn't on some level, any worth their salt anyway, who doesn't frame it like that. It might not be your fault, but it sure as shit is your responsibility.
Yeah. And it was one of the hardest truths I had to even,
It's extreme ownership.
No shit.
And you know what gets even wilder, I reckon? It's like once you've gone a little bit way along that pathway,
yeah.
it doesn't actually matter whose fault it was anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, it's, I can't believe I'm about to say this. It's almost irrelevant compared to what it's teaching you and who you're becoming because of that. If you're prepared to let fault go,
yeah,
and own what it is that you're going through and what that means for you.
Yeah.
It's like that. Isn't that the point of inner work? Is it's to confront that shit.
Yeah.
And be out the other side of it better for that. You're working on that innerness of you. It's in the title.
Right. But that's it. Even like for myself, like showing my age right now, trying to think back. To like my rock bottom, right? Because we all have one, that part that you hit and go, I can't keep doing this fucking shit anymore. And like, granted, guys, I used to be a drug addict. I was doing my own coping mechanisms.
It's what happened
to survive stuff that I went through. And I literally woke up one day and I went, I am the fucking problem.
In case anyone needs it said to them, that is never not true.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't care who has done shit to you. It's your fucking life.
That's it. Like, and I made a choice from that day forward that I was not going to be the toxicity that I grew up in. And I was watching myself become the one thing that I didn't want to become.
As uncomfortable as what I'm about to say might be for people, what I just heard you describe is until you get to a point where you're in enough pain with how your life is going, you're not going to have that wake you up to how your life is going. Because all those maladaptive behaviors, the drinking, alcohol, like Netflix and chill, are all maladaptive behaviors to get you to feel numb.
Yeah.
To that pain.
Yeah. The pain of staying the same must outweigh the pain of change for change to occur. Because both things are hard. Staying the same is hard. Change is hard.
Pick your heart.
Like, as you say, who do you want to be? Do you want to be the, the conditioning, the things that you grew up with? Or do you want to be something different? Something, better is a bad word, but something.
I think it's an excellent word.
Okay.
Only because you're like, well, we don't get to tell you what better looks like for you.
Yeah.
Only you can do that. But you've got to decide that it's better. Otherwise, it's just a thing some dude sitting in a chair said once, or some pretty lady with red hair across the other side of the table says once. Like, it's just a thing someone says until it matters to you.
That's it.
Otherwise, it's just trying to hit smoke. Like, if you're not there to change, if you're not there to confront what's actually going on for you, if it doesn't matter enough, if you're not in enough pain, it's just going to go by the wayside. It's just, or even, and again, this is hopefully vaguely relevant. We want to intellectualize things, so we try and think our way through it, knowing that this is actually a conversation that requires the feeling state and the thought process behind it.
That you've hit that, because that was like my next topic.
Because if those two things aren't paired, it's just you thought a thing once.
Yeah, you can't logic your way out of it.
I think neuroscience is trying to suggest that there is thoughts and feelings are so intertwined that you as a human being, and alive, presumably awake human being, are not capable of being as objective as we all wish we were, because everything we do has feelings as a driving state. There's only one person who doesn't have that, and that's a genuine, legitimate, diagnosed psychopath. And that's only because they do not have the hardware to feel.
Yeah.
That's why they're weird to us. That's why they're confronting. It's because we recognize that everything that we do has a feeling state associated with the thought process and then the actions that come along with it. Psychopaths are confronting because they don't have that, so they don't feel human to us.
Yeah.
That was another tangent.
Sorry. That's okay. I love it. Good job. Well, tangents aside, I think we've gone on a couple now.
Just a couple.
Just a couple. We've put some things in there of how to start raising your self-awareness. You know, so
I feel like we could drill a bit deeper into it, but let's not, tell everyone everything in episode 2.
I know, right? Like, self-awareness will come up so much because it's like a core part of how you do shit, how you run, like
how do you function?
Yeah. So, wanting to do the inner work, huh?
Yeah.
So we've a little bit self-aware. We've been hit by a bus, and you're like, fuck, shit's got to change. Got to do something. I think I might actually start looking at all this pain or all this whatever that's going on inside. How do you start doing inner work?
I would say the simplest version is making a damn decision. Because if you don't, it's just a thing you'd like to do.
Yeah.
That sounds good, but doesn't have quite enough weight for you to actually act on it.
Yeah.
In terms of how you'd actually... I think there's 2 ways we can look at that as a question. One of them is you've kind of got to figure out how the best way to make sense of yourself kind of looks like.
Yeah.
But that's not easy to do, especially when you feel stuck, you're overwhelmed, you don't even know where to fucking start.
Right.
So sometimes it's trying stuff you've heard about out. Maybe it's therapy. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's kicking the shit out of a kick bag just to clear your head, get some anger out, for example, so that you've at least done some venting and hopefully you've got that little bit of space in your own head to come up with an answer.
Yeah.
I liken it like self-care. So there's so many different ways to go about that. There are some templates that you can use, like therapy, like journaling, like yoga, like meditating.
Yeah.
That do help, and all of those are supposed to help you align a little bit more with yourself, to feel a little bit more value about having made a decision and doing something about that. But that may or may not be your best way. But you don't know until you've tried.
Right.
And you don't know until you've tried enough to see where it actually takes you.
Right.
Like journaling. It's like, what happens if all you're doing is just spitting out the same shit?
You're intellectualizing then, you're not actually processing,
right? You're spinning your wheels, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so what happens if that's just not the thing?
Yeah.
Because you're not in a place where rereading what you've just written makes any more sense. What if you need something a little bit more interactive? What if you do need to go and talk to a coach or a therapist or your best mate who actually wants to listen?
Yeah.
So that they can say, can you hear what you just said? That bit of soundboarding, so to speak.
Yeah, most definitely. And also, if I'd like to add like a prerequisite, like, having those amazing conversations with friends and all of those sort of stuff that want to listen. Be prepared for truths.
Anyone who's prepared to listen
is
hopefully prepared to listen without judgment.
Yeah, without judgment.
And by the other side of that, if they're not prepared to listen with judgment, then they're going to hear some stuff that you may have reflected back to you
Yeah.
that hopefully isn't something you need to take personally that triggers you into old bullshit as well.
Mm.
That friend is rare.
Yeah. I'm that friend.
But that's the point of that friend.
Yeah.
If they weren't rare, they wouldn't be valuable.
Just call me valuable. Thank you.
There it is. You've also got to recognize that that's got to be coupled with the courage to have that conversation.
Most definitely. There's power in vulnerability.
I cannot overstate what you just said enough. The profound strength that it requires to be vulnerable, to own something within yourself that you're genuinely concerned that no one will understand, or makes you think you're less than you are, is daunting.
I know, right? Yeah, that's it. Brene Brown, fucking, I love her.
But that's the point.
Yeah.
It's like the fact that you've taken a step towards being vulnerable is you taking a step towards empowering yourself, taking back your strength, being more you.
Yeah.
Shadow work 101.
Hello, shadow. Well, that's it. I think due to, hello, Tangent Land, due to, generational curses, trauma, whatever the case may be, a lot of people are conditioned to keep everything behind closed doors, not to say anything, don't say anything, bad or wrong, or something that you could be judged for in quotation marks, or people won't like you for that, whatever the story is, that we end up with this belief that courage comes from, hiding behind tears, or, being able to put on a front. Yeah. But
sort of.
Yes and no. Like,
but I know what you mean.
Where real courage comes from, as you just said, being able to sit in a space with somebody and be raw, be real. And we're going to go in deeper into what vulnerability actually is in later episodes. But be raw, be like very real to somebody without knowing what their reaction's going to be. Like, to me, that's a hell of a lot more of courage, because you're actually standing on that front and going, I am being 100% open here without knowing how this is going to be received.
So the general stigma around mental health in general, like, this is how it's a thing. Or I would argue that the thing that makes depression, as an example, so debilitating is the idea that you're the only one. No one else will understand. You're totally isolated. No one will get you. You're kind of a piece of shit for that.
Yeah.
But it's that perpetuated belief that, and I guess in terms of what you were saying, it doesn't even have to be just laying it all out on the table all in one go.
No.
Like, you've got to test the waters a little bit. So even if you just tell your mate, yeah, I was feeling a bit off yesterday. And maybe that starts a different conversation. Yeah. Not necessarily in that moment. So you go into the full depths, like, I was about to do something permanent to myself in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Like, I'm an extreme example.
Yeah, very extreme.
But you know what I mean, right? It's like, right. So even if it's not all in that one conversation, it's just having that moment to sort of test the waters. Is my mate Algernon actually going to hear me?
Yeah.
And more importantly, he's going to hear me in a way where he's like, is he going to offer sympathy or empathy, or just dismissal?
Yeah.
All right, well, that's not your friend.
No, I was going to say, if Algernon Algernon's been like, toughen up, buttercup, fucking, deal with it, whatever. He's not your mate, not your friend, without actually listening.
If they're not going to listen, I would argue they're going to be too self-absorbed and too potentially triggered by your shit.
Hello, shadow.
To give you the space that you are asking for.
you know, but opening up those dialogues, opening up those conversations. Like as you said, is it therapy? Is it talking? Is it journaling? Is it YouTube?
In theory, journaling is supposed to be opening a conversation that you have with yourself on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
But if you're not prepared to hear it, or you're just not in that place to read it in that way.
Yeah.
But like YouTube is a great place to start, because you might go, well, how do I make sense of this? And let's be honest, there's a few creators out there. And it's finding that one that resonates with you, that makes sense, that says it in the right way, in the right tone, with the right framing that you just connect with. And that's part of what I meant when I said, like, you kind of got to figure this stuff out for yourself. Like, this is a good example where until you tried something that seemed like, most of those people on YouTube that sort of talk about this stuff, they all say roughly the same thing.
Yeah.
But why does this one speak to you more than that one? And vice versa.
That's it.
And it takes time to figure that out. So just, you know, the inner work is having the patience to be moving forward inch by inch. Whatever that looks like. The fact that you're looking for someone on YouTube says that you've taken a step.
Yeah, that's it. You've taken an action.
Whether you see it that way or not, because you're not fixed yet, inverted commas, because fixed is a bullshit word when it comes to this stuff, but that we'll get into that some other time.
Yeah.
It's not a healthy way to describe any of this stuff.
Yeah. The layers.
But the recognition and having that like little modicum of gratitude to say, I tried. I took a step.
Yeah.
I acknowledged what was going on and I tried to do something. That's powerful.
100%.
Matters.
Definitely.
To your subconscious at the very least, because you've shown up for yourself, which is hard to do when you're in that place.
Yeah, definitely. And even if when you try something, whether it's, you know, Googling or YouTubing, or whether it's therapy, traditional therapy, and I say traditional therapy because I'm a holistic therapist. I work with the unconscious mind, not the conscious one. Whether it is holistic therapy, you got to find what aligns with you. As you said, Todd, like what do you want to do? Do you want to do talk to therapy? Do you want to do unconscious work? Do you want to do a self journey? Granted, guys, self journey is 9 times in 10 with a coach too.
Yeah. Like I would argue that if I'm doing my job for people properly, I'm helping them figure out what works for them, not what I told them to do.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds suspiciously like a codependent relationship at that point. Not there for that.
No.
Nobody is. And if you are, I have professional opinions about what you're there for.
Yeah, 100%.
Which, you know, I'll vent some other time.
I feel those on venties. Right. I definitely I know for me, the biggest joy I get when I work with people is when people go, Sky, I don't need you anymore. I'm like, yes.
My initial consult, no matter what it's about, is we want you to get to a point where you can say to me, Todd, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck yeah.
Winning.
That's the whole point of me, is that I make myself obsolete, which, you know, depending on who you talk to, it doesn't sound like a great business model, but at the same time, it's like, this is how people get to where they're going.
Yeah, business coaches hate me.
Fucking tough.
Yeah.
So I'm here for the person in front of me.
Yep.
And I know you are too, which is why we're here together.
No. Sorry, had to throw that one in there. Awesome. Well, we've gone into tangent land for a wee while now. We've got you guys some ways to start looking at things, start asking yourself those questions, start even journaling, asking yourself those questions, like, what am I feeling? What's happening? You know, start being present with yourself. Is that going for a walk if, you know, sitting in a quiet room is too much for you at this stage? Is it Googling? All of those sort of things. And I just want to put a precursor, because I speak proper English, in as well.
That is what we're here.
I'm going to link in to the details to this podcast my socials, Todd socials, websites, all of those sort of things. So you guys can actually stalk us as well. Like, have a look at who we are, have a look at what we're about.
In case it matters, Sky has way more content on socials than I do. So, you know, if that matters.
If that matters. You know, but you can have a bit of a look and, you know, start pushing towards those journeys.
Yeah.
All of those fun things. So, with that being said, is there anything else you'd like to add? Or shall we wrap up?
About inner work.
Yeah. Because obviously it's going to come up, you know, just letting you know.
It's not going to be easy. But sometimes that's because that's how you view it. It's only as hard or as easy as you choose to make it and how hard you grip onto old things that you've got resistance to letting go of. So ultimately that's what inner work is letting go of old shit that you're no longer trying to rip out of yourself or pretend like isn't there.
Yeah.
And that's how we create maladaptive behaviors. That's how we ignore stuff. That's how we end up like regretting most of our life. I didn't do this, or I didn't say that, or I never acknowledged this.
Right.
Or you did acknowledge it and all you did was whinge about it.
Yes, there is a difference between dumping and working through your stuff. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, as something that I say to a lot of my clients, you are unlearning to learn. You are unlearning all of the shit that no longer serves you, all of the patterns, all of the, you know, self-sabotage, all of the responses, all of the things to relearn something that is going to be in alignment for where you want to go. Take your time, be patient with yourself, and give yourself love and compassion for that.
So there's a statistic when it comes to this sort of stuff, or at least it makes tangible sense to me. 5% of your personality is core you. 95% of it is coping mechanisms built out around all of that stuff that Sky just described that you're trying to unlearn. Literally. Like you have a central pillar of you and all these coping mechanisms and the way you interact with the people around you and the world at large is all the scaffolding that's trying to prop that up. Because when you build out those behaviors, those learned patterns and things like that, you're not sophisticated enough to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. That's why most of the stuff that Sky will talk about when it comes to shadow work is stuff that happened when you were like 5, as an example. So you're just not sophisticated enough to recognize the things for what they are, to be able to reject or accept those things as ideas or commentary about who you are as a person. And I say that to say, you can change that. It's that decision to change that.
It's also that decision that when you fall down, you get back up. When something doesn't work, you try something else.
When we talked about meditation, it's practice. You practice getting up. You practice being more you. Even if you don't necessarily know what that looks like, you practice not being who you were because you know that doesn't serve you anymore.
Love it.
You sort of unlearning all that stuff to learn new stuff that does serve you. That, you know, hopefully in 5 years' time, we don't have a new conversation going, yeah, I learned new stuff, but that doesn't serve me anymore either. I mean, that does represent the fact that you've grown and you need to have another personality revamp. But sometimes you've got to burn a whole bunch of shit down to build a whole bunch of new shit up. But you've got to build that new shit up. Because otherwise your brain just goes, well, we need some sort of survival mechanisms. We'll just go back with default mode.
Yeah.
That's how you stay stuck in that pattern.
That's it. Guys, just as I leave you there, as Todd just said, because that just sparked me. The brain does not like space. You cannot remove something without putting something in its place.
Remove and replace.
Yeah. So if you are removing an old belief, if you are breaking a cycle and changing a pattern, put something else in its place. Positive, please. But yeah, because if you create the space by removing something and don't fill it, your brain will naturally go back to the old patterns because it doesn't like space, and it will go back to
Yeah.
its
It
old
needs something to operate on.
its old wiring,
Yeah.
which is where a lot of self-sabotage comes in. And I'm going to leave that there because that is a whole nother fucking conversation.
Yeah, I've got like 4 different tangents I could go off on that one. So